Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am going to talk to you today about anxiety and the Camino de Santiago and the tactics and tricks that I learned along the way to help me get through something really hard, challenging, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but I did it. And so I'm going to share my tips and my tricks today while we clean my Silver Streak because she's messy. Okay. Hello. Hi everyone. I'm back home. This was my home at one point. I'm in my RV right now. I'm going to be cleaning it today, but I wanted to talk to you about the Camino de Santiago and how I did it, how I managed to walk nearly 500 miles with functional neurological disorder, with anxiety, with everything that happens with my body being stuck in fight or flight mode, with fatigue, with gait issues happening randomly. And anyway, I want to talk to you about that because I did learn some things along the way that helped me. Because if you know, I took 2 attempts to walk the Camino. My first attempt did not go great, and I learned a lot from it. I learned things that I need to do when I travel, like resting before I try to do activities. I hope this video helps someone out there who maybe has anxiety or has reasons why they think that they can't do something hard. Here's what I did. This is not medical advice. I don't know anything. Let's get into it. How do flies get in here? They're everywhere. So I found one of the things that really helped me on the Camino was to not stop walking. Like anytime I took a rest day, my panic would just skyrocket, and I would call my husband and I would say, I want to quit, book me a ticket home now. And when I was walking, it never happened. It was just like when I stopped walking, then my brain had a chance to wander and to go into this panic and to start convincing myself that I was never going to finish this, so why am I trying? And obviously I did finish it, so my brain was very wrong. But anytime I took a rest day, I would notice that panic would set in. So like if I was to walk the Camino again, I would probably do it with less rest days, honestly. Like I wasn't that tired. They weren't that needed, except for like doing laundry. In my opinion, at least, I wasn't going more than like 12, 13, 15 miles a day, I think was my max. So that's a pretty manageable distance to go without getting burnout or getting too sore. Okay, I'm walking. I question whether I want to keep going or should keep going because everything hurts and I'm having like anxiety every night, but I'm walking. Whenever I would get into the state of panic and I would want to quit, I set this rule for myself. And that rule was anytime you want to quit, you wait for 2 days. So if I wanted to quit on a Friday at noon, Sunday at noon, I would come back and say, hey, am I still wanting to quit? Now's the time. You have permission to quit now. But at that point, I'm like 24 miles further than I was 2 days ago. And in my mind, then I'm like, well, no, I can't quit now. I'm 24 miles further. Why would I quit? That's just ludicrous, So that was a big helpful thing for me, is setting this timeline for if you still want to quit by X date, then you can quit then. And I never did. I never wanted to quit when that time came. Seriously, where? How are they getting in? How are they getting in? I mean, okay, door is open right now, yes. But they were here when I came in. The door's open now in hopes that they'll just leave. Really got to figure this out. It's going to be, oh my gosh. I got to figure this out, or mosquito season is going to be horrific for anyone staying in this RV. Oh, I don't want to touch you. Ugh. Get out. Get out. Been looking for this, actually. Okay. It's safe. My coffee's safe. We're good. My coffee's okay. Another thing I did was walking with strangers. I know that sounds crazy because how does walking with strangers help somebody with anxiety? But there are days when you just don't want to be inside of your own head, and walking with somebody who at that time was a stranger, but would probably become a friend, you can talk about where you started, where you've been, where you stayed, anything to not be stuck in your head. And it's very useful. I did not always walk with people. Sometimes it's nice to be in your head. I was thinking about how I woke up stressed and depressed today. And then I was like, wasn't I trying to live in the now and to stop worrying about things that were out of my control? Oh yeah, I was doing that. Look how pretty that is. I started talking to God. And, you know, I told him, I understand that there's absolutely nothing in this entire world that is actually in my control. And I need to realize that and give up this pretense that I have control over anything and just be happy with the here and the now. The sooner I give up thinking that my worry is going to affect the outcome of anything, the sooner I will have less stress and less anxiety and less depression in my life. And as I was walking, I passed an electrical pole just like this one. And I literally just finished talking to God and said amen. And here's what was written on that pole. So yeah, I took that as a sign. I am going to try to finish this Camino just in the here and in the now and not worry about the next day or the next 13 or 14 days. But there are days when you just know that if you are alone with your thoughts, you will quit. I really don't know where to start in here. Moving on to the next thing that helped was accepting that I needed food, no matter what kind of food it was, and not letting my food anxieties get to me. On my first attempt of the Camino, I had been told by a doctor that I had high blood pressure, and so I was on medication to lower my blood pressure, and I was like panicky about everything I ate because everything was salty. And I'm aware that when you're walking that much, you need the electrolytes and you need sodium and you need food. Like, I get that. However, on my first Camino, I had no energy and I couldn't eat. Like, I could not eat. I could not chew. My mouth was so dry. I am dehydrated. I am in pain. I'm exhausted and I'm hungry. Like, I hadn't been able to eat enough to actually have energy. It's been real bad. I sit on the side of the pathway and I start having a panic attack because I don't think I can make this last 2 kilometers and I'm scared. And so on this Camino, I was like, I'm not going to let food be a downfall for me. I'm not going to let hunger be what stops me. So I ate anything and everything that was served to me. And being able to take that fear off of being hungry was huge. In fact, if I got to an albergue or a hostel that didn't have a pilgrim dinner, which happened a few times, I found myself going into a horrible panic and anxiety kicked in and I started crying. I'm just going to stop while I talk. Realized it was because I hadn't really eaten much. I'd had bread, orange juice, and oat milk for breakfast. I'd had a banana and another glass of orange juice. And then I tried to buy a sandwich, but it had like a mystery meat on it, which might have been tongue, but not, I think it was mushroom. So I just ate the bread. That's not enough calories. It's not enough calories for what I'm doing. I just started getting really stressed because there was no pilgrim's dinner. So I went back to the grocery store for the second time, bought pasta, bought bread, bought sauce, found batteries for my headlamp, and went back to my albergue. This girl there, woman, shared some roasted vegetables with me. A man shared his bottle of wine with everybody, and it just became this beautiful little community setting. And the food helped. The food helped. I was anxious because I needed food. So just accepting that I needed to eat whatever was provided. And if I came across food, buy it, carry it with me, eat it. Somebody commented and they're like, basically they thought that I wasn't carrying food with me because every time I saw a cafe, I would stop and eat. But no, At one point, I carried a whole bag of uncooked pasta in my backpack because I was so worried about getting somewhere and not having food. I just stopped to get food anytime I saw a cafe because I knew that I needed it. And turns out I didn't even have high blood pressure. I just have white coat syndrome. Who doesn't? Oh, I've been looking for this. Sleep. Sleep is such a huge dictator for how you're going to feel and for your mental health. And on my first Camino, when I couldn't eat, I also couldn't sleep. And every night was riddled with panic attacks and fears and tears and phone calls back home saying, I need to come home now. Get me out of here. So this year, I gave myself an entire week to rest before I started walking. So I flew into Paris, met up with a friend, which was also very beneficial. If you have a friend in Europe who can meet you, or you can go see when you land and spend some time with, that can help a lot because you're not flying to another country knowing that you're instantly alone. So I flew to Paris, I gave myself a few days there, and then I took a train. I was supposed to actually go from Paris to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, but the train connection wasn't going to work out. There was a strike or something. I don't know. It was in French. Anyway, so I ended up unintentionally giving myself a week. Originally, I was just going to do like 3 days, I think. But because of that train dilemma, I ended up staying in Bayonne, I think for 2 extra nights, and then took the train to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. However, once I got to Saint-Jean, I learned that all the albergues in Roncesvalles and the town between Saint-Jean and Roncesvalles, that I'm forgetting right now, that little village, that it was all booked. And so I needed to wait an extra day so I could get a booking in Roncesvalles. Okay, we could stay here one more night, different hostel, because you have to do that. So we could stay here one more night and book something for the next day. So we look, Orsan is still fully booked. There are openings in Roncesvalles. So tomorrow I'm walking 9 miles through the Pyrenees Mountains. And today, I think this is my 7th day of being in Europe without having started the Camino yet. But it's fine. I've been sleeping, I'm resting, which was my downfall last year, for sure. And so that ended up coming to a week of rest, and it was very needed. My first couple nights there, I did panic a little bit at night, but I had downloaded an audiobook, and then I also had downloaded like sleep sounds. And so if I found myself starting to spiral at night, I would put one or the other on and listen to it until I fell asleep, and that helped to distract my brain and help me to get a good night's sleep. Highly recommend. I am cleaning, I promise. I've picked up 3 things so far. See, here's what I'm dealing with now. I've got my white duct tape, a planer, I think that's what that is, painter's tape, rivets, riveter, that's not going in the bag. Okay, I think that's all the tools. Now that's all the tools. Okay. Speaking about the whole giving it 2 days before you make a decision thing, there was another rule, and oh, this one was so good. This would only apply to women, but if you are anywhere near your period, I did not make a decision. I would say like 3 days before I knew my time was coming, I would stop making decisions, and then I would wait until after I was done before I would make decisions. So again, if I came to the point where I was like, oh, I want to quit. Nope. Hold on. Look at my app. Oh, you're not making any choices today. No. Like everything seems so much worse and so much more dire when your hormones are changing. So just don't, I would not let my hormones decide anything about my trip. I know I get really depressed. I get really anxious. So I just stopped making choices. Another key thing is recognizing when you're experiencing danger versus discomfort. So basically, this applies to anxiety, but also applies mostly, I would say, to my FND symptoms, functional neurological disorder. my body is constantly in fight or flight and like it's pretty much trapped there. And so learning how to decipher danger versus discomfort has been very beneficial. Like there were times when I wouldn't even go into the grocery store because my body would just instantly shut down and I'd have to use like a shopping cart to get around the store, like as a support. And learning that it's just discomfort I'm experiencing and not danger, and being able to tell my body that has been very beneficial. And so I applied that on the Camino also. There was a day when I was walking and my legs just started to give out. And I know that it was because I was in a lot of pain. I actually had a fractured foot, which I'll talk about in a different video. But that explains why I kept saying that my feet hurt.
My nose is running, my eyes are watering, my feet hurt. I have not had good coffee, and it's a 13-mile day. So that's your morning check-in.
So that pain triggered my symptoms, and I had to just stop, take a break, get something to eat, and remind my body that I was not in danger. I was just experiencing discomfort.
So, half mile back, I guess. Extreme fatigue hit me. And I noticed myself starting to take smaller and smaller steps, and I'm not letting my brain do this to me. I've done so good this far. So I'm moving, I'm walking. I told my legs, don't you dare take tiny steps. And trying to like relax my body because my whole body tenses up when this happens. And I can see the town. I figured this was gonna happen today, honestly, because my shoes, my feet were in so much pain, and pain is a trigger for me. So I expected something to happen. And I'm kind of glad it did so I could work through it, but I'm also irritated that it did. Also, you guys, you know I love coffee. Like, you see me drinking my coffee here during this video. I limited my coffee intake while I was walking. I would have max of 2 cafe au laits a day, and they're pretty small normally. Sometimes it would depend on the size of the coffee. Sometimes I would just have 1, sometimes I would have 2 if they had been smaller. But caffeine increases anxiety. And so I was very careful with my caffeine intake. You also saw me take a bus a couple times, take a taxi a couple times, and that was something that I initially had set out not to do. I wanted to walk the entire Camino. However, when it comes down to your mental health and if you're going to finish something, sometimes you just need to accept that it's okay to not to cheat. Like, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's okay to lower your expectations just a little bit. Like, just because you're there to do the entire thing does not mean that you can't give yourself a little break when you need. And this is something that I learned with having FND and having anxiety, is it doesn't mean that I can't do things, but it means that sometimes I have to adjust my perception of how it's going to go. And that's okay, because there was actually a guy I met who, he had an injured knee, and he said he wanted to summit Everest, but with his knee, he didn't think he'd ever be able to. And his friend said, well, why don't you go to the base camp? And he was like, no, it's not the whole thing. It's not worth doing. And that stuck with me. And all night long, I thought about what he said. If it's not the whole thing, it's not worth doing. So the next day I ran into him again, and I was like, you know how you said you want to do Everest, but you said the base camp's not sufficient? And he's like, yeah. It's like, okay, if you had a friend who was recovering from an injury and they wanted to run a marathon, but all they could do was a half marathon, would you congratulate them any less? And he's like, no, a half marathon's amazing. I was like, okay, so is base camp. And he was like, that kind of shifted. I hope he's done it, because I saw it kind of like shift in his eyes. He's like, oh, you're right. Like, it is still worth doing, even if you have to adjust how you do it. Or will it close? Oh, please close. It worked.
Okay, that's pretty good for the kitchen and living room. Onto the bedroom. The last thing I want to talk to you about today is why I decided to walk the Camino. Why I went back after my first attempt, which was such a big... It's not a fail. It's not a fail. Don't use the word fail because you tried. So you did not fail. Failing would have meant you never left home. My first attempt was not as successful as I wanted it to be. Let's just put it like that. So why did I go back? I had become this person who did not leave her house. And if I did leave the house, I was always terrified of having FND symptoms or anxiety or just anything happening. And like I said, my brain is stuck in fight or flight. So I would go into a store and instantly, without even realizing I was doing this, I would start panicking. And I'd have to leave stores way sooner than I wanted. I still do. Let's clarify that. I am not cured. I can make it through a couple of stores now normally, depending on how busy they are before my body just shuts down. So that's a huge improvement. But I had gone to see my functional neurological disorder specialist, and we talked about my anxiety and we talked about FND. And he told me that I needed to get out of my comfort zone and I needed to do more things that scare me, because staying in your comfort zone doesn't fix anything. And I told him that I had tried to walk the Camino, and he was like, I think he was proud. So whenever I left that, I was like, I'm going to try again. He's right. Staying in your comfort zone, avoiding things that test you, that doesn't fix anything. It makes it worse, actually. It makes it so much worse. So I booked the plane tickets. I found a really cheap flight. It was like $200, $250, something like that. And I booked it. And then for that year up to my flight, I worked every single day on my mindfulness, on breathing techniques, on reading books about mental health and listening to audiobooks about it. And I really improved myself a lot over that year. And I don't think if I hadn't gone to my doctor and if he hadn't told me that I was the only person that could fix myself, and I hadn't spent the year working on it, I don't think I would have been in the position to go walk the Camino. When I came back from my first attempt, I actually told my husband that I never wanted to get on an airplane again. I never wanted to travel. I never wanted to go back to Europe. And that wasn't me at all, because I've always been a huge traveler. It's one of my favorite things on earth. And so to come back and be that adamant that it was something that I didn't want to do anymore was a huge red flag that something was not right. I guess that's all I've got for this video. I just wanted to kind of give you guys not advice necessarily, because I'm not a medical specialist. I am just a very panicked person, which is why I'm even giving this medical disclaimer here at the end. But I wanted to, be able to encourage other people who have anxiety, or maybe people who have functional neurological disorder, to still try things that they want to do and just understand that they might have to shift their perception of how it's going to go or change how things happen along the way. You can do hard things. You can do anything you put your mind to. And that is something that I tell myself every single day, and I am still working to learn. You would think walking 500 miles across the country would have taught me that, but no. Every day I still have to wake up and I'm like, oh, I can't do that because XYZ. And then I'm like, no, wait, I can try. And that's all that matters, is that you tried. So if you want to watch my Camino journey, I will link the playlist down below. I'll also put a link to video number 1 up here of my first attempt on the Camino, so that you can see how bad it went and then how freaking incredible and how an absolute 180 my next attempt was. I just got goosebumps. I'm just really proud of myself still. I'm so proud of myself for doing it. And I can't wait to go back and do it again, honestly. Thank you all for watching. If you have questions about my Camino, anxiety, FND, etc., please leave them down below. I do want to do a Q&A once I have enough questions accumulated. Bye.